Sheni.
Right, so Sheni, Gimel Gimel. If one has money in Yerushalayim and needs it, and his fellow has produce, he can say to his fellow, "This money is in exchange for your produce." Thus, this one eats his produce in a state of cleanliness, and the other can use his money for any purpose. But he is not to say to an Amaris except with that of a Demai. Produce in Yerushalayim and money in the country, he may say, "This money is in exchange for that produce." Money in Yerushalayim and produce in the country, he may say, "This money is in exchange for the produce, provided the produce is taken up and eaten in Yerushalayim." Money brought into Yerushalayim may be taken out again, but produce brought in may not be taken out again. Rabbi Shimon Gamaliel says produce brought in may also be taken out again.
Okay. So now we've been talking about produce that was already the finished thing that was already Maaser Sheni, or that was money that was Maaser Sheni. Now we start getting into a little bit of a gray area, which is Peros Shenigmer Melachtan. You have produce that's still tevel.
Mhm.
Okay. And the
Right.
tzedakah is completed, so there's a chiyuv now of taking trubus and masros, and he brought it into Yerushalayim, and then took it out again. Avru b'soch Yerushalayim. So says the Mishnah, it's a point of consensus that Yachzor Maaser Sheni Shelahin v'Yachel b'Yerushalayim. Once he is separated out, so let's say the produce passed through Yerushalayim on its way to his home in, I don't know, Mevaseret Zion. Okay, and he separates out the Trumas and Masros, and now he separates out Maaser Sheni. That Maaser Sheni, says the Mishnah, has to go back to be eaten in Yerushalayim. You cannot redeem it because it's already been through Yerushalayim once the malacha was completed. Now, what happens? Shelo nigmar malachtan. So it hadn't yet finished processing. So let's say he brought grapes through salei anavim legas, or salei teinim lemukte, or baskets of figs that were being taken to the drying floor. So it passed through, and the malach was finished outside Yerushalayim. Beis Shammai omrim yachzor maaseh sheni shelehem v'yechel b'Yerushalayim, u'beis Hillel omrim yipadeh v'yechel b'chol makom. So according to Beis Shammai, it's the same din as if it was malacha was finished. It's been through Yerushalayim, the walls have grabbed it, and by right it has to go back. Beis Hillel says there was a cutoff at Nigmar Melachta. And since it was incomplete at the time, we're treating it as a completely different creature now, and you're allowed to redeem it just like you would any other thing that was farmed outside of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Yossi, he says, I've got a different Masorah on this machlokes. Lo nechleku beis Shammai beis Hillel al perish lo nikmera melachtan sheipad de maaseh sheni shelahem v'yechel b'chol makom. He says, you've got the machlokes wrong. If produce had not been completed and was passed through Yerushalayim, even Beis Shammai agrees that there's no need to bring it back into Yerushalayim. Okay, what did they disagree about? It's only if the produce has been finished. So Beis Shammai omrim yachzor maaseh sheni shelahem v'yechel b'Yerushalayim, u'Beis Hillel omrim yipadeh v'yechel b'chol makom. Beis Hillel is again makil, and says that even though the produce went through Yerushalayim before the masters were taken, it still doesn't have to come back in. Whereas Beis Shammai says it must come back in. Okay, and lahalacha, we don't hold like this view of things. We say that it's like the Tanna Kama said it, that it was the more machmir of the machlokes, and therefore paskening like Beis Hillel, you could be makil only on the
So,
you on the things that was not nigmer malachtan. Okay, but the my nichnas v'yotze v'nifte. However, that's all talking about vadai. If you're talking about demai, that you bought produce from an amaretz, and you separated Maaser Sheni, that is allowed to come in and go out, and nobody's going to be makbid on that. All right. Zion, Ilan Shehu Omeid Bifnim V'Notilachutz. Now, this is an interesting one. We've spoken about this a few times because
right.
we had that Mishnah where we were
Hanging
contemplating
over. Right.
things that are hanging over. So if the tree is hanging over the wall of Yerushalayim, so if it's standing with the root inside and the canopy also protrudes outside, or the root is omed b'chutz, the root is outside the wall, but not telifnim, and the canopy protrudes over the wall. Mikeneged hachoma v'lifnim kilifnim. So what is inside the wall and is considered inside the city, and what is outside the wall is considered outside the city. So it's not. So we're saying here that this has got nothing to do with the root. But, but, should we just roll back a minute to Maseches Masros, right? Masros Gimel Yud. Okay, we just read that a few days ago. So if you pick up Maseches Masros Gimel Yud, what does it say over here? It says Teina shehi omedes bechatzer v'note lagina. Okay, all those things. It's okay. Omedes bate arya choma. Is it? Will be Yerushalayim akol holech achar hanof. The last sentence of that Mishnah says, "Will be
Right.
Yerushalayim akol holech achar hanof."
All
So,
follows the branches.
so here we're saying no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It goes all according to the walls, and here we're saying that it's going according to the canopy of the tree, and the canopy will. It sounds like it extends the sovereignty of Yerushalayim. So we explain that this is actually not a contradiction because in the Mishnah in Masros, we're talking about we're talking about the all right, so let's see, we can actually can Paris Maaser Sheni dinam laha lo sam Yerushalayim is talking about where you are allowed to eat. In Masros, we're talking about, does this produce is this produce considered that it was grown in Yerushalayim? And if you picked it and if you picked it over there and finished the malacha underneath the tree, then you'd say, okay, so Yerushalayim is collated. In our Mishnah in Maaser Sheni, we're talking about where you can eat it. Is it considered inside Yerushalayim? And in this case, the wall is what determines whether you are allowed to eat it. So in both cases, we're going lechomra because the tree does not extend the area where you're allowed to eat Maaser Sheni, or anything else that has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. But in terms of the produce of the tree itself, we're also going to be machmir that even if you're outside the walls and you pick the fruit outside the walls and you're under the tree there, we're going to say that's also considered inside Yerushalayim, and you have to bring it in. You cannot redeem it.
It says as houses of walled cities all follow the root, cities of refuge will follow the branches, and Yerushalayim they follow the branches.
Mhm.
Right.
So that's referring to the fruit, whereas
Right.
the Mishnah over here is talking about where you're allowed to eat Maaser Sheni. So in both cases, it works out as a chumrah.
Okay.
Okay. Batei habadim shepischeihem lifnim v'chalalan lachutz. Or pischeim lachutz v'chalalan lifnim. Okay, so we're talking about an olive press where the opening is inside Yerushalayim, and where the opening is inside Yerushalayim, but the actual so let's say you've got a little tunnel or something that goes under the walls, and the actual workspace of the press is actually outside of the footprint of Yerushalayim. Or vice versa, if the entrance is from the outside and the workspace is inside. Beis Shammai say hakol kilifnim. We're going to be machmir and say that everything is inside Yerushalayim there. Beis Hillel omrim mikeneged hachoma v'lifnim kilifnim, mikeneged hachoma v'lachutz kilachutz. So no, it all depends on where things are relative to the wall, and if you're inside, if the workspace straddles the space under the wall, like if you dug a hollow underneath the wall, then it's all vertically what's under the wall is where the dividing line is. Similarly, Mishnah Ches, it's got nothing to do with Maaser Sheni, but we're talking about these interesting divisions of when the entrance is in one place and the actual chamber is in another. So halashachos ben habnuas bekodesh. So you got on Harabayis, you've got one chamber where the entrance is from outside, but the actual space of the chamber is inside the harbayis. So does it have the court? Is it considered kodesh? And okay, it's built inside the kodesh, but the entrance is to chol. So the then the inner chamber is considered chol, tochan chol, v'gagosen kodesh, and the roof, however, is kodesh because the roof is now is actually inside the harbayis, and that's where people get to it is from harbayis. What in the reverse situation? Actually, is no such thing as a reverse situation. There is nothing where they're built in chol and the entrance is from harabais. But the Mishnah often talks in terms of theoretical possibilities, right? We've seen that lots of times when we always ask like, why would there be? So don't say why would there. This is the theory we're trying to establish over here because we're trying to get principles, even if it's
All
not
right.
a realistic case. Okay, so if it was built in chol and the entrance was in kodesh. Tochan Kodesh v'gagosein chol. Then the entrance would also be Kodesh and the roof would be chol. So it's a perfect symmetry here. Benuyos b'Kodesh. If it was built in Kodesh ubachol, it's so if it straddles the line between the Kodesh and the chol. Upasochas laKodesh v'lachol, and there are entrances from both sides. And there actually is such a case. Um, I think there was the chamber where the Kohanim used to sleep. And there was
Mhm.
a line that went across the middle that separated between the Kodesh and the Hall in that chamber. Okay. Tochan v'gagoseihen, both the interior and their roofs. Keneged HaKodesh v'laKodesh is Kodesh, v'keneged HaChol v'lachol is Chol. So there again, the dividing line is the vertical line of where the Kodesh starts and ends. Once you've got entrances on both sides, and they had that little line in the middle that divides between the Kodesh and the Chol. Okay. So back to Masros,
Okay.
which we will finish today and come back to Maaser Sheni.
Okay. Uh, about Baal Peki, garlic, Reaper garlic, onions, beans,
Hold on,
and
hold on, hold
Egyptian.
on. We go back to Zion, the ant
Oh,
holes.
sorry, I skipped. I'm sorry. I have the check here too. Also, my mistake. Ant holes, which stayed a whole night near a pile, which is liable, and are liable since it's evident that they're away the whole night from produce whose work has been completed. About Abake garlic, Rikba onion, Syrian beans, and Egyptian lentils. Ramea says they also colocasia. Rabbi Yossi says also wild lentils are exempt from Maaserus and may be brought from anyone in the seventh year. The highest seed pods of the arum, the seeds of leeks, the seeds of onions, the seeds of turnips and radishes, and other seeds of garden produce which do not serve as food are exempt from Maaserus and may be brought from anyone in the seventh year. And though they were grown from truma stock, they may be eaten.
Hmm.
The
Adrian Allah Maseches Masros, and let's do a Maaser Sheni Aleph Aleph.
I'm just checking because I'll get those and stuff. That's training. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Okay, so I knew I'm going to do that one now. Maaser Sheni may not be sold or pledged or bartered, nor may be used as a weight, nor one should not say to his fellow in Yerushalayim, here is wine, give me oil. Also with any other produce, but they may give it to another one, give it to one other, another as a free gift.
Okay.
Okay.
Shumos.
Okay. Um, if the daughter of an Israelite ate truma and afterwards married a priest, if the truma she ate did not yet been acquired by a priest, she pays its value and a fifth to herself. But if she ate truma which the priest had already acquired, she pays its value to the owners and the fifth to herself. For they said, if one eats truma inadvertently, he pays its value to the owners and the fifth to whomever he wishes. If one gives his laborers and his guests truma to eat, he pays its value and they pay the fifth. So says Reb Meir. But the Kachamim say they pay its value and the fifth, and he pays them the value of their meal. If one stole truma but did not eat it, he pays double the value of truma. If he ate it, he pays twice its value and the fifth, the value plus a fifth from chulin and the value of truma. If one stole truma of hegdish and ate it, he pays 2/5 and its value, since twofold payment does not apply to hegdish. Okay.
Okay. do hay as well because you started with bet, which we did yesterday.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
One may not pay from Lechet, that's with Maya, Shikaka pay or Hefka, nor from Maaser Rishon from which its Truma has been taken, or from Maaser Sheni or Hektish which has been redeemed. For one holy thing cannot redeem another. So says with Maya, but it can come in with these. Okay. Okay. Now on to Pega. Okay. He who possesses 200 zuz may not take leka, chikakapea, or maisa ani. If he had 200 less one, then even 1,000 give him together, he may take. If they were mortgaged to his creditor or to his wife's ketubah, he may take. They do not compel him to sell his house and his utensils. Whoever has 50 zuz and trades with them, he may not take. And whoever does not need to take and takes will not depart from the world before being in need of his fellow men. And whoever needs to take and does take will not die in old age before he will support others from his own. Concerning him, scripture states, Blessed is the man that trusts in the Lord, and whose trust the Lord is. And similarly, a judge who delivers a truly righteous judgment, and whoever is neither kiga or blind or pischa or feigns to be as one of them will not die in old age before he becomes like one of them. It is written, justice shall you pursue. Every judge who takes a bribe and perverts judgment, he will not die in old age before his eyes grow dim, as it is written, and you shall take no bribe, for the bribe blinds those that have sight.
Hajanalach, Maseches Peah. Have you got Demai there?
Right? And we are all ready for July.
Yay.
Come on, sure. The following are treated leniently in respect to Demai: wild figs, jubundu, fruits, crab apples, and wild white figs, sycamore fruit, unripe dates, kufin, and caper fruit in Judea, also sumac, vinegar, and coriander. Rabbi Yehuda says all wild figs are exempt except dufra. All juju fruits are exempt except the juju fruits of shikmona, and all young sycamore figs are exempt except for those that burst open. Okay, and Gayam. Okay, Yud. A Baharis the size of a grist expanded an additional grist. Living skin or white hair then appeared inside the expansion, and the original nega disappeared. Rabbi Akiva renders the tame, and the judges say it must be examined anew. A Baharit for half the size of a grist has no other symptoms inside it. Another Baharit half the size of a grip appears, which has one white hair. The nega is confined. The Baharis half of the size of a grist has one white hair, and another Baharis half the size of a grip appears, also having one white hair. The nega is combined. A Baharis half the size of a grist has two white hairs. Another Baharis half the size of a grist appears, containing one white hair. The nega is confined. I'm sorry. The Baharis half the size of a grist has no other symptoms inside it. Another Baharis half the size of a grist appears that has two hairs. This nega is confirmed because the sages stated if the Baharis preceded the white hair, the afflicted person is tame, but the white hair preceded the Baharis is tahu. If it is uncertain, the afflicted person is tame, but Rabbi Shua disapproves of this ruling. Aleph. If any doubt concerning Negayim is Rutah, except for this last case, the next one. What is the next one? Someone has a Baharit the size of a grist that the Kohen confined. At the end of the week of confinement, he was the size of a cellar. But it is uncertain whether this is the original nego that spread or a different nego that replaced it. The Kohen rules it confirmed Tameh. Okay.
Avos.
Avos. Here we go. Okay, Gimel Vav. Rav Kalafta Mendoza, leader of Kafar Hananya, says when 10 people are sitting together, they engage in Torah study. The divine presence dwells amongst them, and as is stated, God stands in the divine congregation. Rav Elazar, leader of Bartosa, says, "Give him from his own, for you and your possessions are his." And similarly, David says, David says, "For everything is from you, and from your hand we have given to you." Rabbi Yaakov says one who is traveling upon the road while studying a Torah lesson and stops and studying and claims, "How beautiful is this tree," or "How beautiful is this furrow." Scripture considers as if he bears good for his soul.
Just thinking, didn't we do that yesterday? Or am I wrong? I lost my place.
I don't think we did it yesterday. No.
Uh,
You think so?
oh, no, beg your pardon. I was in the wrong place. You carry on. You carry on.
Gimel Ches. Rav Dosa Bar Rav Yanya says in the name of Rabbeya, Anyone who forgets one item of the study, Scripture considers it as if he bears guilt for his soul. Um, you know, soul. As it is stated, only beware for yourself and greatly beware for your soul, lest you forget the things that your eyes have beheld. I might think, even if his studies overwhelmed him, Scripture therefore states, unless you remove them from your heart all the days of your life. Thus, he does not bear guilt for his soul unless he sits and removes them from his heart.
Okay.
And we're here at Yevamos. Yud Aleph Al Dalet. If a woman's baby became confused with her daughter-in-law's baby, and they grew to adulthood and married and died, the sons of the daughter-in-law perform Kalitza, but may not perform Yibum, because it is uncertain which is their brother's wife and which is their father's brother's wife. The sons of the grandmother, however, may perform either Kalitza or Yibum, since the uncertainty is which is their brother's wife and which is their brother's son's wife. If the certain ones died, the uncertain ones perform Kalitza, but not Yibum. With the grandmother's sons, widows, because it becomes uncertain which is their brother's wife and which is their father's brother's wife. With the daughters-in-law's sons, widows, one of the uncertain ones performs Kalitza and the other one may perform Yibum. If the child of a Kohen's wife became confused with a slave's child, they may both eat truma. They receive one portion of the threshing floor, and they may not contaminate themselves with the dead, and they may not marry either qualified or disqualified women. If they became adults and emancipated each other, they may marry only women fit to marry a Kohen and may not contaminate themselves with the dead. But if they contaminate themselves, they do not incur 40 lashes. They may not eat truma, but if they ate, they are not required to pay the principal and the additional fifth. They did not receive a portion of the beginning of a portion of the threshing floor, but they may sell truma and keep the proceeds. They do not receive a portion of the sacred temple objects, and we do not give them separate objects, but what is theirs is not taken from them. They are exempt from giving the upper foreleg, the jaws, and the stomach. The firstborn animal should be left to pasture until it becomes blemished, and both the stringencies which apply to Kohanim and those which apply to Yisraelim are imposed upon them. If a woman did not wait 3 months after her divorce or widowhood from her husband, but remarried and gave birth, it is not known whether it was a 9 month child or a former husband of a 7 month child or the latter. If she also had other sons from the first and second husbands, those sons perform Kalitza but not Yibum. Similarly, he may perform Kalitza for them but not Yibum. For if he had brothers by the first and second husbands not through his mother, he may perform either Kalitza or Yibum, whereas one must perform Kalitza, after which the other one may perform Yibum. Okay.
Okay. And we done.
Uh, Tomorrow, I think we